Alright, party people, so the first thing you guys did this week on Monday was the endosymbiotic theory. So I'm going to run through this video with you. I'm going to pause it, go through some stuff, talk as I would if we were in class together. So here we go.
What if you could absorb another organism and take on its abilities? Imagine you swallowed a small bird and suddenly gained the ability to fly. Or if you engulfed a cobra and were then able to spit poisonous venom from your teeth.
Not as cool.
Throughout the history of life, specifically during the evolution of complex eukaryotic cells, things like this happened all the time. One organism absorbed another, and they united to become a new organism with the combined abilities of both.
Okay, real quick, this is a little analogy that they're showing here. This isn't actually like how it works, okay? Like everything can't just absorb whatever it wants. So this is, again, just an analogy. This particular example on the screen we're looking at, this is not how like fish came to be.
We think that around 2 billion years ago, the only living organisms on Earth were prokaryotes. Single-celled organisms lacking membrane-bound organelles.
All right, so at the beginning of time, we believe that only prokaryotes existed. Again, they are single-celled. They do not have membrane-bound organelles. That includes a nucleus. They do not have a nucleus, so their DNA is just kind of free-floating in the singular cell that makes up everything that they are. So they only have one cell in their whole being.
Let's look closely at just 3 of them. One was a big, simple, blob-like cell, with the ability to absorb things by wrapping its cell membrane around them. Another was a bacterial cell that converted solar energy into sugar molecules through photosynthesis.
So hopefully you've identified, 1, that it's green, but 2, that it's something that took the sun's energy and turned it into sugar, aka glucose. So this green one over here is what we believe to be the ancestor to the chloroplast.
A third used oxygen gas to break down materials like sugar and release its energy into a form useful for life activities.
So hopefully that one there reminds you of the organelle that uses oxygen to create energy, which we think is the ancestor to the mitochondria, leaving this orange blob to the right to be one that didn't have any particular special skill or talent. It just happened to be large and able to engulf others.
The blob cells would occasionally absorb the little photosynthetic bacteria. These bacteria then lived inside the blob and divided like they always had, but their existence became linked. If you stumbled upon this living arrangement, you might just think that the whole thing was one organism, that the green photosynthetic bacteria were just a part of the blob that performed one of its life functions.
Alright, so this idea is that the orange blob-like prokaryotes that, again, were single-celled, didn't have any particular special talents, other than that they were able to absorb things that were smaller than them. And some of the things that were smaller than them were the green prokaryotes, which resembled what modern-day chloroplasts do, and those triangular ATP-making bacteria, which resembles the common-day mitochondria. So if you looked at it in this particular still shot, it would look as though it was one thing consisting of multiple parts rather than 3 separate things, because the orange, the larger prokaryote, absorbed the smaller green photosynthetic prokaryotes.
Just like your heart is a part of you that performs the function of pumping your blood. This process of cells living together is called endosymbiosis, one organism living inside another. But the endosymbiosis didn't stop there. What would happen if the other bacteria moved in too? Now the cells of this species start...
So before that purple bacteria moves in, if we think about this more present day wise, this would resemble, well, actually, that's not true. I take it back. Keep going.
becoming highly complex. They were
now it would look like a modern day plant cell, because plant cells do in fact have both mitochondria and chloroplasts in them.
That we call chloroplasts and mitochondria. These structures worked together to harness sunlight, make sugar, and break down that sugar using the oxygen that right around this time started to appear in the Earth's atmosphere.
Remember that these two processes do work together, okay? The chloroplast used the sun to make glucose, it was right here, and then the glucose was broken down in the mitochondria to create energy. Remember that photosynthesis and cellular respiration work together. They have opposite formulas of one another. You can't have one without the other unless you are an animal in which you get your glucose not from the sun, but rather from eating your food. Your mitochondria will never be able to make energy if you do not eat.
Appear in the Earth's atmosphere. Organisms absorbing other organisms was one way species adapted to the changing environmental conditions of their surroundings. This little story highlights what biologists call the endosymbiotic theory, the current best explanation of how complex cells evolved. There's a lot of evidence that supports this theory, but let's look at three main pieces. First, the chloroplasts and mitochondria in our cells multiply the very same way as those ancient bacteria, which are
So, evidence number one, they divide the same way of the ancient bacterias, chloroplasts and mitochondria, divide the same way as their common ancestor, or what is to be believed as their common ancestor.
Still around, by the way. In fact, if you destroy these structures in a cell, no new ones will appear. The cell can't make them. They can only make more of themselves. Second piece of evidence. Chloroplasts and mitochondria both contain their own DNA and ribosomes. Their DNA has a circular structure that is strikingly similar to the DNA of the ancient bacteria, and it also contains many similar genes.
So the chloroplast and the mitochondria contain their own DNA, specific and unique to them, which kind of goes back to the idea and the theory that they used to be their own thing, which is why they have their own DNA.
The ribosomes, or protein assembly machines of chloroplasts and mitochondria, also have the same structure as ribosomes of ancient bacteria, but are different from the ribosomes hanging around the rest of the eukaryotic cell. Lastly, think about the membranes involved in the engulfing process. Chloroplasts and mitochondria both have two membranes surrounding them, an inner and outer membrane. Their inner membrane contains some particular lipids and proteins that are not present in the outer membrane. Why is that significant? Because their outer membrane used to belong to the blob cell. When they were engulfed in the endosymbiosis process, they got wrapped up in that membrane and kept their own as their inner one.
Alright, so they also have double membranes, meaning they already had a membrane that kind of kept their whole cell together when they were on their own and not engulfed, and as they were engulfed, they gained a second membrane, presumably from the larger prokaryote that absorbed it.
Surely enough, those same lipids and proteins are found on the membranes of the ancient bacteria. Biologists now use this theory to explain the origin of the vast variety of eukaryotic organisms. Take the green algae that grow on the walls of swimming pools. A larger eukaryotic cell with spinning tail structures, or flagella, at some point absorbed algae like these to form what we now call euglena. Euglena can perform photosynthesis, break down sugar using oxygen, and swim around pond water. And as the theory would predict, the chloroplasts in these euglena have three membranes, since they had two before being engulfed. The absorbing process of endosymbiotic theory allowed organisms to combine powerful abilities to become better adapted to life on Earth. The results were species capable of much more than when they were separate organisms. And this was an evolutionary leap that led to the microorganisms, plants, and animals we observe on the planet today.
All right, so all this to say that yes, this is what we think began to happen billions of years ago, and that we've come a long way since then. So this did not happen overnight. They did not just magically engulf every smaller prokaryote that existed, but this was over many years, okay? Slow process as evolution normally is, okay? So this is how we think eukaryotic cells came to be, that they were engulfed by the larger prokaryotic cells, and the three main pieces of evidence that we use to support this theory were found in this video here. So if you want to go back through those, if you didn't get them down, please take the time to do so. But that is what I've got for you on the endosymbiotic theory.